Hey, Dad,
What, Logan?
what do the church mice say when they go door to door?
I don't know.
We'd like to talk to you about cheeses.
You're grounded.
No, cries.
You're listening to The Wayward Willis with Jon and Logan, where two atheists discuss religion, culture, and maybe some politics. If you're offended by blasphemy, profanity, or you hate fun, this podcast may not be right for you. And now, on to the show.
Hey, you.
It's us.
Live and in substandard mono sound.
I'm your host, John.
And I'm Logan, a human person.
And this week, we're picturing every last one of you naked.
Every last one of you.
We're going to be talking about stuff that would make your grandma blush.
And maybe even turn her on. We don't presume to know things about your grandma.
We're talking about sexual morality.
So, what even is sexual morality?
Well, the dictionary defines sexual morality, or sex ethics, as the study of human sexuality and the expression of human sexual behavior. The definition folds in a metric crap ton of topics like consent, feminism, premarital sex, marital sex, and extramarital sex, homosexuality, gender identity, sex work, and dry humping. I mean, flirting.
No, I think you meant dry humping, you perv.
Potato. Sexual ethics is a narrowly focused portion of the social contract that guides how civilized society interacts.
Well, it's a good thing we don't have a civilized society.
You'd better hope we do. You have to be able to do more than one push-up to survive the purge. Religious morality, though, is based on prescriptions from holy texts instead of taking into account human nature. Actually, religious sexual morality is really based on denying human nature and commanding that people fight against it.
Kind of like AC/DC commanded its listeners to fight against the man.
They had a rare blood disease called stick-it-to-demoniosis. Is that an STI?
No.
Regardless, world religions, on the whole, have an odd fixation on sex in the human body. Abrahamic religions like Judaism, Islam, Catholicism, and Protestant Christianity all have different views on implementing control over sexual behavior, but they're guided by the same principle, that sex was created by God for the purposes of procreation, not recreation.
Which is a huge relief because sex does not feel good at all. It's basically a chore, but not like the kind of chore you delegate to your children unless you're a terrible parent, I guess.
Or a Catholic priest?
Oh, God.
Yeah. Sex is considered holy when done in the context of marriage, but dirty and immoral otherwise. Even to the point where holy texts have punishments as extreme as the death penalty for sexual immorality.
But that's why you have to beat them to the punishment and sex yourself to death. Go out with a bang, you know?
Like, blow your brains out?
Or go down in history.
Or triple expire?
Or snuff it.
Whoa, too far, buddy. You know, even people who have been married and divorced are said to be committing adultery if they later have sex with someone else, even when they get remarried.
Seems legit.
Catholicism places comically misguided restrictions on masturbation as selfish and disordered. Clement of Alexandria wrote that sperm is not to be wasted. And John Calvin said that voluntarily spilling seed is monstrous.
Maybe he's bragging about the size of his orgasms.
Oh God. The ban on masturbation most likely stems from the story of Onan in the book of Genesis. When Onan's brother died before his wife was preggers, it was Onan's lawful duty to screw his dead brother's wife to raise children in his brother's name. What ends up happening is that Onan doesn't agree with the law, and while he's getting it on with the widow, he pulls out and jerks it all over the floor. God gets so mad at him, he kills him on the spot.
Oh dear. If jizzing on the floor is punishable by smiting, all the confessions in the world won't save me now.
You should try socks or something.
Ew.
I wonder what God would have done if Onan had fumbled around with a yak hair condom for several minutes before he boned his sister-in-law.
I had something funny to say in response to that, but now I've just got this mental image of a yak hair condom bouncing around in my head, so thanks for that.
That's what I'm here for, man. I'm nothing if not helpful.
No, I think you're just nothing.
All Christian sects, Christian sex, sects, coincidence? Hold that sex is purely for making babies and prohibit having fun while doing it. I imagine some ancient dude writing scrolls wanting to add, shirt on, lights off, missionary only.
You know, it took me literally the past 21 years of my life leading up to this exact moment to realize that the position is called missionary and what the implications are there.
I obviously didn't do my job as a parent.
Is that not clear?
What's stupid is that Christians still enjoy sex as much as anyone else, you know, as long as they're wearing shirts. But some deny it because it's taboo. It's not like you can look at a Christian couple and know exactly how many times they've done it by counting the children standing next to them. That's not even how procreation works. Unless you're the Duggars, I feel like with 900,000 kids stretching a mile and a half
900,000,
behind
huh?
them. Yeah.
900,000.
Yeah, 900,000. Have you seen how many kids those people have?
900. You know what? I challenge that. Challenge. The gauntlet is down. Please prove to me Duggars have 900,000 children.
Okay, start counting now.
No, that's not proof. I can't just count forever and that be your proof that children exist. What's wrong with you?
So you're saying that you can't count to 900,000?
All right. You know what? Fuck you. This is not
How
a valid
I
argument.
can?
Does not hold up in court. I have not been lawyered.
So this prudish denial of human nature makes conversations about sex uncomfortable or off limits. My parents were super Christian, and they didn't talk to me once about sex. You want to know the closest my dad ever got to talking to me about it? So we're in the car, right? And he says, John, you know why you have a boner in the morning? And I'm thinking, what the fuck is happening? And then he says, it's so you don't wet the bed. And I'm like, what the absolute fuck? That isn't even biology. Most normal males get 2 to 3 erections per night, and the only thing it indicates is that you're capable of getting an erection. To this day, I have no goddamn idea where he got his degree in bonerology.
It's kind of weird that your dad knew you got boners in the morning and that he has a degree in bonerology, which, now that I'm saying it out loud, sounds a little made up.
It's the proverbial you. And for your information, he could have gotten his degree from Oral Roberts University.
Go home. Get out of here. Go away.
So now that we've established that having sex is fun and therefore apparently sinful, we need to talk about Islam. This is where things get less fun.
But wait, weren't things supposed to be not fun leading up to this point?
Point taken. But we'll try to bring the mood back up after this. Some majority Muslim countries in the Middle East and Africa have a religious and cultural tradition of female genital mutilation, or, as advocates call it to make it seem more innocuous, female circumcision. This is the practice of lopping off a girl's clitoris to make sure she doesn't become a sex-crazed trollop. It isn't innocuous, though. Way too many girls die from infections due to poor sterilization practices, or they bleed out because there are no goddamn hospitals around to treat clit amputation. It's freaking awful and unnecessary. It also shows a complete disregard for a woman's right to bodily autonomy and positions all women as at fault for a man's inability to keep his dick in his pants.
And even though we never actually talked about how cruel male circumcision is, this is like at least 3 times as bad as that.
Look, I've written blog posts in the past about male circumcision and vehemently oppose it, but at least you still have a penis when they're done. But now that we've established it's a woman's fault that men like sex, did you know that's why Muslims put their women in bags as well? The burqa only exists because of an extreme interpretation of the Quran, where it says a woman's face and body are tempting, so they have to be covered. Apparently, Muslim men think it's a woman's fault for being pretty when she gets assaulted. What's even sadder is that this sentiment persists into Western culture as well, where even in America, when a woman reports sexual assault, the first question some people ask is, what was she wearing? And what's sad is the people you most commonly hear this from claim to be followers of a loving God. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with people? What about some goddamn personal responsibility and a basic understanding that every single person has the right to have you not fuck them?
Yeah. Christine and I were just having this talk when she was discussing the perils of taking the metro and public transportation in general. She was saying that she often wants to wear certain clothes, like skirts or things like that, depending on the weather, and then she second guesses herself because she doesn't want to encourage the creepy guys on the train that are already catcalling her. And I was like, doesn't that sort of perpetuate rape culture a little bit? And she was like, I mean, yeah, but what are girls supposed to do in the meantime? And our society is already messed up, and we need to get this misogynistic, she was asking for it because she did X or she wore Y nonsense out of the equation because it's just illogical bullshit.
Agreed. So let's talk about religions that aren't so backward and idiotic. Hindus consider sexuality to be a normal part of being human. The Kama Sutra is based on the idea that intercourse is a bond that holds people together. It's incredibly progressive considering it was written somewhere around the 2nd century. It's also the basis of a lot of Google searches. Hindu temples are adorned with sculptures of people getting it on, which wouldn't really be my first choice for home decor, but hey, whatever floats your boat.
Clearly, you have no taste.
Have you seen my girlfriend? She's way out of my league. So ordinarily, at this point, I would let Logan go, but because we were interviewing a girl, he wants to hang around.
All right, well, that's not... Just... whatever.
We're really lucky today to have a guest with us who is doing some very important work in the St. Louis and St. Charles, Missouri area. And I was excited to have met her at Gateway to Reason this year. And she gave a talk and had a table set up. And Logan and I went and talked to her about what she was doing. And this woman is just very informed. She's very woke. And the stuff that she's doing is going to do a lot of good for kids in the area. So we have with us Sally Hunt from Expose Thrive.
Hi.
And Expose Thrive is a political action committee, which I find very interesting. I've got a question, at least one question about that. But I want to introduce Sally and give her an opportunity to kind of just give us the rundown on what exactly Expose Thrive is.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for that introduction. And it was so nice meeting you as well last weekend. So Expose Thrive is a political action committee that works to expose this group Thrive in the St. Louis and St. Charles, Missouri area. Thrive is a conservative, Christian, anti-choice and anti-birth control organization that is actually in currently 7 it was a lot more, but 7 public school districts in the area teaching abstinence-only sex ed. Abstinence-only sex ed, which is based in religious morality, based in shame, judgment, and fear of all sex outside of marriage. And so our group, Expose Thrive, started just as a Facebook group where we were communicating about our efforts in these school districts to get Thrive out of these school districts, teaching this awful curriculum. But in addition, we also aim to expose the reality of their crisis pregnancy centers, fake clinics, which pose as real medical facilities, clinics like Planned Parenthood that offer medical services for women like abortion, but they are not real clinics and they are not licensed or regulated and they do not have any doctors on staff. And they actually are, you know, like I said, they're Christian, they're fundamentalists, they're anti-choice, they're anti-birth control. Women go in there thinking it's a real medical facility, but then they get lied to about abortion, inaccurate statements about abortion so that it seems unsafe and so that it seems as though it would have long-term psychological consequences and cause cancer and cause infertility and all this stuff that's not true. And so that is who Thrive is. We want to expose that as well as the abstinence-only sex ed and the problems with that.
So, not to interrupt already, also, hi everybody, I'm on this interview, finally. So this is actually something that when we were at Gateway to Reason, you were talking about the fake clinics, and I actually had a question about this because this is honestly the first time that I've ever even heard of that, and I was just curious, is this something that like Thrive tells people in the classes that they're teaching this curriculum in? Do they tell people about these clinics? They like direct them to them? Or is this something that's like anybody can get fooled into going to one of these, and people who are like in the know, like the insider knowledge about the fact that they're actually fake clinics, they can just like usher people to them to kind of pressure them into not actually getting any sort of treatment?
That's a great question. So the thing is that Thrive actually, they've been in these schools for years, for at least 10 years, I think, teaching this awful abstinence-only sex ed. And actually, it was written into the contracts with these districts that we have seen that they are allowed to to market their fake clinics. And they have been doing that. And I actually have old slides. So I don't know if they still do it. They may have changed that now that we've pointed out the big problem with that. And so but it's hard to know what they say when no one is there in that classroom. But in the past, it was actually, they had slides as part of their PowerPoint presentation with their fake clinic. They have this RV mobile unit clinic because they park it right in front of Planned Parenthood. But they would have pictures of that, and they would have phone number of that, and they have other locations as well that are not RVs that are and so they gave the addresses, they gave the phone numbers, and they did advertise to the students, and they said, you come here for if you need free STI testing and free pregnancy tests. And I always thought how funny it was, because it's ironic, they claim that their abstinence only until marriage curriculum is effective. So I kept thinking, well, if it's effective, why would kids ever need the STI testing and the pregnancy test? But anyway, yes, so they do.
Get out of my head. That was the question I was just about to ask.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, their quote unquote effectiveness is not based on any actual studies of, the STI rates or the unintended pregnancies. It's literally just based on kids filling out a form, and who knows if that's even accurate. But anyway, that's a side topic. But
these clinics, do they actually, do they charge people to come to them, or
no? So that's how they get you. That's their whole.
At least there's that.
Well, that's their whole shtick. And it's really sad, because actually, it's yet another reason that we should be for Medicare for all, universal health care. Because if we actually had really good quality healthcare in this nation, Thrive and other groups like them wouldn't be able to prey on the poor and the people who, really they're going to be tempted because it's, we have free STI testing, we have free pregnancy tests. So that's how they get them in the door. And actually, the president of Thrive is on video saying that they put on a traffic vest, they park their RV right in front of Planned Parenthood. Their Thrive people wear a traffic vest to stop women as they're walking into Planned Parenthood, and that's how they pay attention to them, because they're wearing a traffic vest, as she states in this video. That's the whole purpose. And then they lie to them and they say, oh, hey, I see you are walking in there today to get services at this here, but we're testing out new equipment here, they will say. So come on in, and ours is going to be free. And if you go in there, they may charge you X number of dollars for those services. But that's how they get women to come in, is by telling them, it's free. That's their ideal woman, is a woman who is pregnant and who wants to get an abortion so that they can lie and shame. And they use religion and all of that. They talk about God.
Okay, so do these clinics, and obviously clinic is in quotes.
Yeah.
But they're saying that they offer free pregnancy tests and free STI tests, but are they actually administering those? And if they don't have any medical staff in these places, then, are they actually able to offer those services?
I do believe they have nurses. They do, but the majority of people who work for them are not even nurses. Like, they might have one nurse, there. So they do, from my understanding, is they do legitimately offer some sort of STI testing. I mean, I don't know what they test for. I'm sure they don't test for everything, but they test for something. They do that. And they do give ultrasounds, but they are not qualified to diagnose anything with the ultrasounds. They can't even say where you're at, in what stage of pregnancy. And actually, these crisis pregnancy centers are very well known for lying about how far along a woman is in her pregnancy on purpose. They will do that so that she thinks it's too late to get an abortion. So it's not reliable. So they will have like an ultrasound technician, but it's not somebody who's able to, they can do basic things. They can give an ultrasound, but they can't really give a lot of information.
So sorry for getting us sidetracked. I was curious about that.
Okay, so off of the clinics and back to the education portion, is Thrive a nationwide program, or is it specific to Missouri?
So Thrive, specifically, that particular organization is only in Missouri and is only in the St. Louis and St. Charles area. But there are many other organizations exactly like them all across this nation. Unfortunately, it's a huge problem. We really need to raise awareness about this problem and expose these fake clinics and expose this fake sex ed. Yeah, it's definitely a big problem all across the country.
Before we actually started recording, you were telling me about somebody who just contacted you from Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
So you're already kind of starting to get that spread and that recognition and helping people out nationwide instead of just in the Missouri area.
Yeah. I hope we can make that happen. Yeah, I just had a conversation with somebody who wants to make a blueprint for, not about the clinics, but about the sex ed in schools, about how to expose the fake abstinence only, religious morality based sex ed, and ultimately get comprehensive sex ed. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we can kind of mobilize people all across the country to speak out about this.
I really hope we can. So these programs, obviously they're teaching kids that you don't want to have sex until you're married, because obviously when you have a marriage certificate, every possible risk of sex and pregnancy just goes away. It's magic. We all know this. But aside from, if you like it, put a ring on it, what are they teaching the kids?
So in a nutshell, they're teaching the kids that sex is really scary. It's gross. It's dirty. It's yucky. You will be gross, dirty, and yucky if you have sex before marriage. But like you said, only before marriage. The second you get married, totally, it's great. You're not gross anymore. But
hey, what if you wait until marriage to have sex and then you get divorced? Then is sex after that like totally cool?
Right.
Because you've been married?
I don't think they talk about that, but I mean, yeah, I mean, there, of course, we know that it's all based in their religious morality view. And of course, they believe you must only ever have sex within a marriage. And so I'm sure they don't think it would be okay to have sex after divorce, but I don't believe that they talk about that. But you're right, though. I mean, there is a high divorce rate. And if you're encouraging kids, I mean, basically, that's the thing. They're encouraging kids to essentially get married pretty young.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we all know, like, kids are going to be really horny, and they're going to ultimately, if they believe that that's the only way they get to have sex is to be married, I mean, I think we've all known people like that. I know I have people who rush to get married because they wanted to have sex so bad. And then it turned out, oh, wait, maybe I've married the wrong person.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Thrive and other programs like this are not really preparing kids for actual, relationships and sexual relationships. And there's so much depth to be discussed there about open, honest communication. And they leave all of that out. It's just don't do it until you're married, the end. And that's essentially it. Because it's scary. You'll get STDs. You'll get an unintended pregnancy. And that's the extent of what they're teaching. So
my dad and I have heard you talk about this a couple of times already, but if you would talk about the Cheez-It in the cups, go for it.
Oh, this is my favorite one. Yeah, I mean, not actually favorite, but yes, it's so ridiculous. So when they're in these public school classrooms teaching this curriculum, the Thrive Best Choice presenter has 2 cups of water, and they give all of the students in the class Cheez-It crackers to chew, and then they leave 1 cup of water alone, and then they take the other and they pass it around, and each student chews up and spits out their Cheez-Its into the cup, and then that student passes it back, and then the next student does the same thing, and then the next student does the same thing, and then at the end of all of the students passing the cup of water around and spitting out their Cheez-Its into it, the Thrive Best Choice presenter asks the students, so which cup would you rather drink out of? This pure, clean, untouched cup of water, or this yucky, gross, dirty, disgusting cup of water with these chewed up Cheez-Its? Obviously, the kids in the class are like, oh, great, we want the clean water. The other one is gross. And that represents someone who has had premarital sex. And it was like representing each kid as they passed it, that's another person you're having sex with. And then that's your body after you have premarital sex, is that you're gross and disgusting. And, and of course, it's just not only does it really, really shame all students for their, normal, personal sexual choices, but it also really shames rape victims. And I think that's really important to talk about. And Elizabeth Smart talks about that a lot. There are videos and there are articles about her speaking out about abstinence-only sex ed for that reason. The entire emphasis and all the value is placed on your virginity. And if you're not a virgin before marriage. It's all about how nobody's going to want you anymore. Like that's the presenter is asking them, which one would you want? So the whole point is no one's going to want you if you have sex before marriage because you're so disgusting now and you're useless and you're dirty and gross. They may as well just say, then you're a whore and a slut, and it also is very misogynistic. I mean, they don't actually say girl, female, but first of all, let's talk about the symbolism of a cup of water. I mean, that's way closer to one biological sex's genitals than the other, right? Like it's internal, it's wet in there. Who does that represent? It definitely seems more that they're talking about girls. I mean, the entire curriculum is based on promoting gender stereotypes, and it seems very much harsher on females, more judgmental of females. It's all about that slut shaming. Yeah. And so I just think that's really, really harmful to kids.
Right. And when we take into account the fact that this is all based on a religious system of morality, then, we have to take into account the patriarchal structure of religion in the first place. And the whole idea that a woman is dirty and gross and unholy when, even when she's on her period, let alone if she's had multiple sex partners, that really just drives that point home and really makes the misogynistic angle of this, quote, curriculum all the more detestable. And I wanted to point one thing out for people who are listening to us. You're not going to see this, but all of the material for Thrive that I've seen, the V is capitalized for whatever reason. And am I the only one who saw that and just instantly thought vagina?
Well, it's funny because I used to wonder what is going on with that too. And I saw an interview with the president of Thrive. She says that she claims that it's supposed to be arms up in the air, like praying to God. Because they're on their website, like the logo, it has like a little dot for a head. Oh, gotcha. And so it's like those are the arms. But it actually, it looks like legs also with that head. Like it looks like your legs are up in the air sort of. I know it's weird, but no, they're praying. They're just praying to God.
No, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having your legs up in the air.
Exactly. As long as you're married. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay. So yeah. And this, I'm trying to figure out like, when did this kind of program start rearing its head in public schools?
Yeah, so they have been very under the radar. They sneaked their way in, and they have been there for 10 years in some districts. I mean, different districts at different times, but we have learned that it's been, like 10 years that they've been in public school districts. And we now know for a fact that Thrive approached these districts. It was not the other way around. They are salespeople, and they know how to sell their product. And of course, so they pretend like it's completely secular and they pretend like it's completely medically accurate. So what I've learned throughout all of this is that we really cannot just trust that our public school administrators are going to just do the right thing, and board members, unfortunately. But we can't just assume that they're doing the right thing. We have to actually hold them accountable and demand answers. It's been very disappointing that they allowed this program, this curriculum in their schools in the first place to be taught to kids. And I should point out that it is taught by unqualified individuals. They have no background. They're not even certified teachers. That is not a requirement to be a Thrive Best Choice presenter. So they're not certified teachers. They have no background in human sexuality or in health or medical science or relationships or any of that. The only job requirement is that they're Christian. And I found a job listing in December that was for a Thrive Best Choice presenter, and it was on ChristianCareerCenter.com. And that was number one requirement. Listing number one was you must have a dynamic relationship with Christ. And it also said you have to be an active member of a church, but did not, and they had to have a bachelor's degree in anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, it's funny to me, like places like Liberty University and obviously the Thrive program and, other companies and charities and organizations will actually make a personal relationship with Jesus Christ a formal requirement on their job applicants. But how the hell do you even gauge that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go in and talk a good game, but I
No,
don't
dog,
give a
Christ
fuck
is my
about
boy.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yep. Well, then you could trick them, I guess. That's how
Yeah.
you do it.
Well, I wonder if they have any jobs I'm interested in. I could talk it up.
Oh, man, I need somebody to infiltrate. So maybe you can do that.
Thrive is an inside job.
Oh, seriously.
inside job.
I've been dying to get someone to, because they have job listings every so often. I see it and
Do they pay well?
They got that right wing money. They got plenty of it. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. So speaking of money, I figure, and this may be a little bit off, but I figure that probably what's going to make a program like this attractive to school administrators and school boards would be cost effectiveness, because I'm assuming that Thrive, because they have a vested interest in just, making people Jesus-y,
Yeah.
that they're offering this for free. Yes?
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So
Okay.
you don't charge the school district. And the school program, the Best Choice program, is in St. Charles. It's funded by St. Charles taxpayer dollars through the CCRB, which is it's supposed to be funding like mental health types of things, but they also do some sorts of school programs. But it's supposed to be with about mental health. So I don't know how they justify it. We've tried to go there and get them to stop funding Thrive, but they haven't. So yeah, so in St. Charles they do pay for it with tax dollars, but otherwise, I keep thinking I need to do more digging and more research into their funding. But I do know that they, on their tax forms, the Thrive organization is funded by Focus on the Family, the Knights of Columbus, a local Christian radio station, Joy FM, Grace Church, a local church. Those are all on their tax forms. I know that they're funded by, but who knows who else? There's probably more.
So this is actually kind of a follow-up question. You were talking about how they came in kind of like under the radar. And before meeting you at the conference and hearing what it was that you had to say, I didn't know personally that this was a program that exists. I don't know if Dad did either. I'm assuming probably not. Yeah. So how did you find out about it, and what prompted you to start up this and to start your activism against the group?
So it was a friend of mine who found out first that they were in her school district, and she was in the Francis House School District in St. Charles. And so this was in December. So she found out that it was Thrive teaching her school's sex ed. I guess she was just asking questions about the sex ed in the district. She found out and asked Thrive some questions. And this is back when they openly gave out information when they didn't know that we didn't like them. Like now they don't tell us anything. They don't talk to us. They don't answer our questions. But so back then they did. And so they happily gave out a list of all of the school districts that they were in. And so they gave that to us. And as soon as I saw that, my head exploded. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this fundamentalist right-wing group is in our public schools. Public education is just something I take very seriously. I've always been an atheist. And for me, it's just really important that, we have separation of church and state. People have the right to whatever religious beliefs that they want, but keep that stuff out of public schools and out of government. Very important. So I just have this visceral response when I hear about this stuff, this infringement on separation of church and state, and especially with young developing children, and especially about sex and sexuality. It's just horrible in so many ways. So that's how I originally found out, was through her in this district. And then we got that list. And so then what happened was, so I saw they were in 20 different school districts. Like I mentioned at the beginning, they're now only in 7, which is pretty amazing. And that's because we did this activism. I started this group, Expose Thrive, as a Facebook group, and I got the word out to people all across the St. Louis and St. Charles area. Mm-hmm. And I just started telling everybody, hey, this is what's going on. This group is in all of these public schools. If you don't like this, come join me and let's speak out and let's fight it. So people did, and we went to school board meetings, and we met with administrators and we emailed, we met in person, and little by little, schools started dropping the program. And we got media attention too, and that was major. That helped a lot. Got more attention for us. We were covered in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the Riverfront Times, television news. There have been several stories about us, and I have all of the articles and the TV news, all of it is on exposethrive.com. I did put links to everything up there as well as the actual curriculum. You can see the Thrive curriculum for yourself on exposethrive.com as well. And you can donate to us there, by the way. Just got to mention that. But yes, and it was pretty exciting. We actually were in Teen Vogue. Mm-hmm. We were covered there as well. As little by little, as all of these districts started dropping this program, it was pretty cool to that Teen Vogue covered us. So that's kind of been that's how it's all transpired. And then it was in June that I realized we kind of hit a wall. We had made progress, but that there were some districts, there were a handful of these districts that are sticking with Thrive, but I'm not going to give up. And I realized we're going to need money, to fight this. And we need to have money so that we can advertise and print out flyers and just be able to educate more people and raise more awareness. So that's when I made us into a political action committee.
So aside from any donated funds from people who visit your website, do you guys pull funding from any other sources right now, or is that about it?
That would be amazing. If you have any ideas for how to do that, please let me know. As of right now, no, it's just individual people who don't like this group teaching this type of harmful, shame-based propaganda in our schools who help us out and give us donations. That's it.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to link all of your sites and all of your places where you have a presence in the hopes that when people check the show notes for this show, they will be moved to give you a little bit of money. And it doesn't take much. I think that we need to talk about that is, if we can get some people on board and say, this is a good use of my money, this is a very worthy cause, then even if people are only giving very small amounts, which you will gladly accept, it all adds up.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you. We will take any little amount. Makes a big difference for sure.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, obviously we want Thrive out, but how do we encourage good, informative, safe, science-based sex education? What kinds of places can we go to for that and encourage them to get into the schools to fill this gap?
Yeah, just my personal thought. Because the tricky thing is to get these administrators on board. That's that takes a lot. It's difficult for them, but oh gosh, yeah, those all of those types of curricula are very problematic. We have to have actual mature conversations about sex and
oh, you're on the wrong podcast.
Not us. We don't have to be mature, but with kids. Yes. Kids can handle those conversations. I feel like these types of lessons, when they're taught, the expectations for kids are so low. They can handle a real conversation about all of it. And in fact, that it's shown that that's going to delay their choice to actually have sex, and it's going to increase the chances that they're going to use condoms and birth control when they do have sex. So the focus needs to be way more on all of that, and it needs to be way more on consent as opposed to just scary STDs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good segue into another question that I had. Obviously, since Thrive is, trying to preach an abstinence-only program, does this even get into or even in the same neighborhood as addressing the topic of consent?
Yeah, that's a great question, because sadly, no. No, it doesn't. And it's just really harmful to leave consent out of the conversation of sex. It should be like the first thing, one of the first things that you talk about. For sure. And here's the problem, really, is that these abstinence-only programs, they are completely taking away each student's autonomy and their ability to consent for themselves, because it basically Thrive and their presenters are deciding for the kid, for each student, when the best time is for them to have sex, when it's okay to have sex. They're making that decision for these kids. And it's just horrible. What we need to be teaching kids is that no one gets to decide when it's okay to have sex except for you. And you are always in control of your own body. And you should absolutely never do anything that you're not 100% comfortable with and choosing on your own to do. You make that choice for yourself. And what we want is for these kids to be making informed choices, fully informed, responsible choices. But they choose. That's the thing. Thrive doesn't get to choose. No teacher gets to choose. No parent gets to choose for their child. Because you can have an opinion, but that's just an opinion. You know, a parent can, or a teacher, whoever, can want their kid to wait until marriage, but like, you don't get to actually decide that. That kid is going to decide that whether you like it or not. So that's the thing. It's not really sex education. It's just sex opinions. The sex, you know, religious morality opinions. But actual education is, here are all of the facts, including consent, condoms, birth control, etc. And then you get to take all of this information, all of these facts, and make the most informed choice yourself.
One of the other branches of what you do is a sex positive revolution. And one of the things about this country, well, and obviously it's not just America. There are way more repressed countries. But in America, we do, as a whole, view the human body as kind of shameful, as dirty. And there's just a whole entire prudish, puritanical culture around sex in this country. And so I wanted to ask you, obviously, if we're going to have good, comprehensive sex education that does not include those religious stigmas, then we need to define and really understand what sex positive means. So could you talk on that for a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. So I've been talking about how what we need is a sex positive revolution. And so sex positive is a term that I didn't even know until just a few years ago. But what it means is that we view sex and sexuality as it's a positive thing. It's a normal, natural, healthy part of life. It's a part of who we are as human beings, and that we encourage open, honest communication about sex and sexuality, and that we acknowledge the reality that sex is for pleasure, and, you know, and masturbation is a normal, natural, healthy thing. And it's okay to say this, and we should say it. Like, these are just true things. And
well, at what point does masturbation become unhealthy? I mean, are we talking, like, how many times can you masturbate a day and still be
asking for a friend, right?
Asking for a friend. I just want to make sure that I don't have to, like, scale back or anything.
Right. So, and it's funny because I have been doing more and more research into all of this in human sexuality, and I've been like reading up with on sex experts talking about this, and everybody always says that that's like the most common question they get answered, and it's always completely fine no matter how many times a day, as long as it doesn't interfere with like your job. Like, you can still hold down a job, you can still like pay the bills and maintain, a functional life. As long as you're able to have a functional life, you can masturbate as many times a day as you want.
So what I'm hearing you say is you should always seek out opportunities to work at home.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Pretty
All right.
much.
I just want to make sure we were on the same page.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think we're done here.
All right. So in conclusion, we do want to point out that Expose Thrive and Sex Positive Revolution both have presences online. And Sally, I want you to go ahead and just kind of plug everywhere that people can find you, and we'll just make sure that we get this out.
Thank you for this opportunity. ExposeThrive.com has all this information. You can go there. You can email me at sally@exposethrive.com, SALLY. And on Facebook, you can find the page, public Facebook page for Expose Thrive, and public Facebook page for Sex Positive Revolution, Sex-Positive Revolution. Sometimes people leave out the dash, or the hyphen. I just want to say you're supposed to hyphenate, because I care about grammar just like I care about sex positivity. And we also have a group, Expose Thrive group, which you could join if you want to and discuss with us there. And my name is Sally Hunt, and you can find me on Facebook as well. But I also soon will be putting out videos on YouTube about this topic. And I think I'm just going to do it under my name, Sally Hunt. And I will be talking all about sex positivity and all about the problems with this abstinence only garbage. So that'll be coming out soon. Yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, and we should mention that your talk that you gave at Gateway to Reason is also available in video as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I put it on the Expose Thrive page, and then you can also find it on YouTube. If you search Sally Hunt, if you search Expose Thrive, Thrive Best Choice, you can find it all there.
All right. Well, Sally, it was a pleasure talking to you today, and I really hope that we can kind of drive some more traffic toward you. And you had mentioned to Logan that maybe people from other areas can reach out and talk to you and find out how they can get more involved in other states.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Public opinion has swung back and forth on the shape of the human body over time. In periods of food shortage, famine, or disease, a high level of body fat represents health and virility. In periods of excess, a fat person is just viewed as lazy and sloppy, and people who are lean and lithe embody the healthy image. What always makes me mad is that these standards are applied heavily toward women, but body shaming isn't exclusively used as a tool to try and make women cry. Matt Dillahunty recently replied to someone who told him, without knowing anything about him, that he should lose weight so he'd live longer. Matt had every right to tell the person to fuck off, however well-intentioned the person might have been. The truth is, this person has no idea whether Matt's weight is unhealthy or if Matt has been trying to manage his weight and succeeding. It's a slap in the face to someone who's either perfectly comfortable with their body or in the process of changing it to point out you think that they've got a problem. Maybe you should take a look at where you've gotten this view and determine whether or not it's based on some shitty cultural norm that doesn't have any bearing on a person's well-being. Also, maybe you should try and understand the person you're addressing before you open your mouth. Speaking of opening your mouth, there was a recent Facebook post that went viral about a guy who loves his curvy wife. What I took away from this post was that the guy wanted to refute the idea that women have to be supermodels in order to be attractive, and I can identify with this sentiment. I mean, I'm way more interested in whether I can have an interesting conversation with someone 7 years down the road and enjoy being in the same room with them than whether they're going to be shopping at Big and Tall or Lane Bryant. The problem isn't the sentiment behind the post. The problem is the response. The internet exploded over this with questions like these. Why did he need to say this? What purpose did it serve, and who's the audience? Does he want a cookie? If he had simply said, I love my wife, I'm sure people would have been like, oh, how cute, and moved on. Injecting the word curvy into it completely changed the response 180 degrees. It says a great deal about our culture when an innocent affirmation turns into a viral hate spree. Nobody knew the dynamics of this man's relationship with his wife, or how they talk and feel about their body image or self-confidence. Yet, as in the case of Matt Dillahunty, they went on the attack anyway. Let's go the opposite direction and take a moment to remember the release of John Legend's song, All of Me. I can't tell you the number of people who cried foul because, well, of fucking course John loves all of his wife. She's a Victoria's Secret model. What a shallow asshole, right? No. John Legend is no different from rando internet guy in expressing affection for his wife. We just live in a society where you can't win no matter what the hell you say, and you can't win no matter what you look like, because we're all programmed to point out the fact that not everyone is a paragon of human perfection. Well, no shit. Look, the thing is, you need to love yourself. You need to love those around you. Realize that becoming instantly enraged at statements like these may actually be harming the very person you're trying to protect. Overweight, underweight, BMI perfection doesn't matter, because we can all be happy with who we are if we could stop telling each other we're not good enough. Random verse. Random verse. Random verse. Random verse. Our random verse this week comes from Leviticus 12:6-7. It goes like this.
When the days of her purification for a son or daughter are over, she is to bring to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting a year-old lamb for a burnt offering and a young pigeon or a dove for a sin offering. He shall offer them before the Lord to make atonement for her, and then she will be ceremonially clean from her flow of blood. These are the regulations for the woman who gives birth to a boy or a girl.
Yeah, I'm gonna file this under creepy and unnecessary.
I would file it in much the same place. So this is a commentary on childbirth, where the woman's natural biology is seen as dirty and in need of atonement.
Yeah, it almost makes it sound like this is saying that the process of giving birth is sinful and that you have to make up for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can find all kinds of examples in the Bible, this especially being one, where a woman's natural biology is seen as dirty and that she has to somehow make up for it. And when you put this in context of the rest of Leviticus, you'll see that in chapter 15, when a woman has her period, she's considered unclean, and she's absolutely prohibited from touching anyone or anything. And if anyone touches her during her period, they are also considered unclean, and then they have to murder animals to fix it.
I mean, that's the best way to fix anything. But that's beside the point. I don't understand. Okay, so going along the illogical spiel here, it doesn't really make much sense to me for this almighty God who is making these people and doing things that are nice to them. Well, actually, hold on. Back up. Isn't there some part of the Bible, and this is like the very limited knowledge that I have, isn't there some part of the Bible that says because... Actually, I think this is like the Adam and Eve part, where because they did the bad stuff and they disobeyed God, which doesn't make sense, but whatever, he gave them a limited lifespan and then made childbirth painful. Wasn't that part of the thing?
Yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Well, so what was childbirth supposed to be like before Adam and Eve fucked up?
I'm not really sure that he planned far enough ahead for that, because if you ask any theologians, they would say that when Adam and Eve were plopped into the garden, that they were going to live forever.
Oh. Well, all right. Well, hypothetically, if they decided that even though they lived forever, they were still going to have kids, maybe originally God had a plan for birth that wasn't terrible and painful and sinful, quote unquote, in this scenario.
Like cell division?
I don't know. Maybe they just like split in half and form another person, like human mitosis.
Well, maybe it was just that God was going to keep creating people out of mud and ribs. I'm not really sure. But
well, then maybe that's what it was. He invented childbirth as a punishment for them being fuck-ups, and then because he had to do that, and childbirth as a symbol of them being fuck-ups, it's sinful now.
Well, right, but that also means that when they screwed up and got kicked out of the garden, that God also, at that point, created sex, which doesn't make any sense, because sex is awesome.
Well, not if you ask religious people. Sex is for procreation only, which leads to something painful and terrible and sinful.
Well, yeah, but it still feels good while you have your shirt on.
All right, well, I think that not really devil's advocate, I guess the God's advocate part of this argument would be that birth wasn't originally supposed to be a thing, and then it became a thing because Adam and Eve didn't do what they were supposed to, and now it would be sinful because it's a representation of Adam and Eve being sinful.
I've never really thought about that, but yeah, if you tie painful, bloody childbirth to sin, then yeah, every time a woman has a baby, it's just a reminder of how horrible we are as humans for being human.
Yeah, granted, all this sounds like bullshit anyway, but I think that this one can probably... I'm going to shift my categorization over to I guess it makes sense.
Okay, hold on. I think you're giving it a little too much credit.
That's what I'm saying. I guess it makes sense in the context of the Bible fictional universe.
Okay, answer me this. So, I give birth to a son or a daughter, and, well, I mean, not me. I can't give birth. But someone gives birth to a son or daughter, and in order to not be unclean anymore, they have to murder a lamb and a pigeon or a dove. What's even the theme there?
All right, so I think I might need to shift my categorization again. Yeah, even the part of me that's trying to make sense of this doesn't understand why there has to be an animal sacrifice to make up for the sinful part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we're still in the Old Testament. This is the old bloodthirsty God, and so there are sacrifices just throughout the whole thing. People are just slaughtering animals and charring them on a barbecue all the time. But I guess I don't really understand, like, if you were to turn animals into a currency, would a lamb be a $5 bill and a pigeon is like 50
All right.
cents? Like,
I think you're reading a little too far into this one.
all right, well, I just don't understand like how we're quantifying these. And is a pigeon exactly the same amount as a dove, or is it just like it'll work in a pinch?
Well, maybe that was like the barter system, and that's how they paid for giving birth. Like now we have to pay hospitals for them to help deliver the baby.
Okay. So then if I were to have another kid and I go to the hospital with a lamb and a pigeon, are we good?
I don't think so. I think
we're good.
I think you would probably get arrested or something.
No, I think we're fine.
You would be like, my wife's having a baby, here is a pigeon, and they would be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Please leave.
So another question that I have about this is, if you're going to sacrifice a lamb, I totally get that. You have to like farm lambs. Like you have to shepherd sheep, and it takes effort, and it takes time, and it takes money, and they're actually worth something. But who the hell has like a pigeon farm? Are there pigeon farms?
I mean, probably not, but there are pigeons everywhere.
Right, but what does that represent? I mean, if I can just, okay, so I go to the park, sitting on the bench, throwing out some corn or whatever the fuck I'm throwing out, and pigeons roll up, and then I just like dive into the middle of them and grab one, right?
Okay, hold on, back up, because this says a young pigeon or dove, and I feel like if we're talking about how the Bible likes to try to be poetic sometimes, where the dove is a symbol of like love and purity or some shit like that.
And peace.
Yeah, so maybe the dove was, oh, this is a peaceful, loving, compassionate symbol that I'm sacrificing to you because I want to be peaceful and loving and compassionate. And then people were like, yo, God, there aren't enough doves for this shit, and if we kill all the doves, then we won't have any more doves. And he was like, all right, fine, you can use pigeons too, I guess.
I don't know. Like, it seems like there's just an incredible difference between a garbage-eating rat with wings and a dove, right?
I mean, yeah, one of them is literal trash.
Right. Yeah, it's actual trash, like made out of trash.
You hear that? National Geographic, pigeons are trash.
New story. All right, all of that aside, isn't it kind of weird how explicitly these verses state that this only applies to women who give birth to a boy or a girl? Like, what the fuck else is it going to be? A puppy?
Well,
exactly. Like, I don't understand. Okay, so this is for a woman who gives birth to a dragon, and they're going to have to sacrifice 14 horses and their nephew. Like, I just don't really get, like, why you have to specify a boy or a girl. What about hermaphrodites? Hermaphrodites. What about hermaphrodites? What if it's a boy and a girl? It does say "or" in this verse.
I feel like, programmatically speaking, that would still throw a true result. If baby equals boy or baby equals girl, and in this case, it equals both of them.
Actually, yeah, that would short circuit an if statement on the first condition. So, yeah, you're good. All right. So only if it is a puppy or a dragon do these rules not apply.
Well, that's where we go into talking about the genders of the puppy, because the puppy could still be a girl puppy. It doesn't specify a girl or boy human.
You're not wrong.
All right, I think we've beat this one enough.
Okay, so our rating on this, on a scale of a lamb to a pigeon, where are we putting this one?
Probably like halfway between. I'm going to go with like a beaver. I imagine that's somewhere in the middle of the line there.
All right, Leviticus 12, 6, and 7, officially rated beaver.
Confirmed.
And that'll do it. Thanks again for listening this week. Thanks all around to the wonderful people who make this podcast possible. I'm finally going to crawl into bed with my girlfriend after a billion years of editing audio, but we'll be back next week with another episode. If you're enjoying our nonsense and want to support us, you can head on over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/wayward. Intro music was provided by Austin Colon and used with permission. You can find more of Austin's music linked in the show notes. This podcast is a media production of Willisware LLC. All rights reserved.
This has been The Wayward Willis. If you liked what you just heard and you want more of Jon and Logan, you can follow us on Twitter at WaywardWillis, Facebook at facebook.com/TheWaywardWillis, or at willisweb.com. If you want to help the show and have a few extra dollars, you can donate per episode or per month on Patreon at patreon.com/wayward. We'll be back next week.